Hi, everyone. Welcome back, where we dive into human side of construction, the people, the leadership, and the decision that actually makes project move forward. I'm your host, Wiki Nas, founder of JPJ Staffing, where we help construction companies build high-performing team from ground up. Today, is guest is someone I truly admire for her clarity, empathy, and sharp industry insight. Kimberly Ranlett. She's a senior HR leader, certified mediator, and trusted advisor to executives across construction and beyond. Kimberly has led HR strategies in complex, high growth environment from small companies to organizations with thousands of employees. She's built talent system from scratch, led through mergers, and has a track record of reducing turnover by turning culture into a competitive advantage. Kimberly, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Wiki. It's nice to be here.
Awesome. How are you today?
I'm good. I'm good.
Awesome. That's great. Kimberly, so I want to dive into our first segment,
Mhm.
your career journey in HR and in construction. So let's start at the beginning. You have worked across different industries, but construction seems to be a recurring theme. What drew you into this world and what keeps you coming back?
That's a great question. I ended up taking a job with an infrastructure company, and that isn't necessarily direct construction, but overlaps. And so that was my introduction to Gantt charts, project management, and how at any second everything can blow up no matter how well planned. And so from that role, I took it and left to the at the time the number one home builder in the United States and experienced what it meant to do and see construction on a really large, organized scale. And then my most recent role, we were in construction specifically for the justice industry. So they're not just building a house or an office building, they're building compounds that are worth hundreds and hundreds of millions of dollars, if not over a billion. So that was my first exposure to, I'll say, construction with an enormity of scale.
Okay, excellent. So it's you started off with residential construction and then you moved your way into commercial construction with a lot of complex technical requirements for those projects.
Yeah.
Excellent. How has your approach to HR evolved over the years, especially as you stepped into a more leadership roles?
When you start into HR, you are taught in college as much as they can teach you about the profession, which is how to write a handbook, how to remain compliant with the law, how to work in different industries, because HR has to be adaptable to whatever industry it joins. But they don't teach you things that you can only learn on the job, such as employee relations, conflict resolution, mediation as an example, and the ever changing landscape of how politics affect the law and the industry that you're working for, especially if you contract with the government.
That's true. And the culture as well is
Oh,
very
yes.
important as well, right? Because
Yes.
that's something you don't get to learn while being in school, reading books and stuff, because that's something you understand when you have your hands-on experience with different entities. And every organization have a different type of culture that comes with it, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah. Okay. Excellent. Excellent. What has been the biggest disconnect you have seen between the field leadership and the HR strategies?
Wow. So sometimes especially in construction, sometimes managers don't want to comply with HR instruction. And I think that HR has to own their part in that conversation. Did HR communicate to the field managers why it's so important that they have their teams follow these new compliance laws, for example, or why it's so important that these safety risk or safety mitigations, I should say, are put into place? And, they're going by what they know, where HR is coming from everything they see across their past jobs and their current job, where typically the field manager is trying to get through the day to day turmoil that's going on site, which is understandable. Their job is not HR, but they still have to pretend they're an HR manager because HR is often not on site.
Gotcha. And I believe also because they might have a perspective that you're not in the field. So
Mm.
you don't understand what the day to day looks like. You are sitting behind the desk creating policies and being able to make sure that they comply with those policies. Understanding from your perspective, you look at the bigger picture of what the whole environment looks like, right? It might have never happened on the field when the leadership was on the field, but you might have had previous experience working with different organizations that might have gone into that same issue. So I think that's why from HR perspective, we always need to be able to respect their policies and comply with those, because we might only see one aspect of the picture, but you look at the overall it entails. And I think it's a very important point that you made, Kimberly. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah.
Awesome. Awesome. We'll dive into our segment two, which is hiring talent and working with recruiters. You talk about talent. Everyone says good people are hard to find, but you have said it often. It's not a talent shortage, it's a visibility and a value problem. Could you please elaborate and unpack on that?
Absolutely. So, yes, is there sometimes an actual shortage of talent depending on the specific role you need? Absolutely. In construction, where we start, which is with architects are always difficult to find, especially if you need them to have your specific industry experience. However, I think what companies miss a lot is the unicorn doesn't exist. Unicorns really are not real. And it's not that looking for a unicorn is a bad thing, but understand that it takes a toll while you're looking for this unicorn. It takes a toll on everybody at your company. Wouldn't it be a much bigger value add to find somebody as close as you can to the job role and invest in them? Invest in them. It might be costing you $40,000 a month in lost revenue when the role's empty. But if you had hired a skilled person who wants to learn and sent them to a $5,000 class and hired them quickly, your problem is already halfway solved. And so I think that people need to focus more on value and pay attention when HR tells you that you're actually hurting your own bottom line by looking for this unicorn that really isn't running around.
Yeah, that's so true, Kimberly. You hit the nail on the head. Unicorns don't exist. We all want them. There's no doubt about it. We all want 10 out of 10 candidates with every single point being matched, but it happens very rarely. And you are right. When we delay the process, you're delaying the project timeline, the budget, and overall constraint on everybody else that's involved in that project. And sometimes there are a lot of people who are willing to learn. They might have a basic understanding of what the background you need, and they can always evolve with their careers, and everybody's looking to grow and learn more and enhance their skills. So I'm
Mhm.
sure investing in the right person who's a team player, who understand the culture, who has the right background, would definitely become a valuable asset. And I have seen that many times in construction during my experience, where the hiring managers were reluctant on hiring an individual because of it didn't hit all the 10 points. But I made them understand this is the guy you really want in your team. He has helped organization move projects. It's not just about coming 9 to 5, let me take care of my job and out of the way. He's more of a team player. He wants to develop and become a major part in your organization to move projects forward. And I think those type of people that can eventually become an executive or leadership within your organization if you allow them and if you invest within them.
Absolutely. I think the most overlooked skill that a lot of these, we'll call them non unicorns, have is grit. And grit is something that somebody has or they don't have it. There's no classes in giving you grit, right? You were taught that you have that internal drive or you don't. And you know what? You might find the unicorn on paper, but if they get in your door and they don't have grit or they're not self-driven or they're not a team player, they're not going to make it anyways. And now you just lost another 40 to $100,000, even though you thought you found a unicorn. Look for the unicorn, but stop at a logical point when you find somebody fantastic. Yeah.
Really relevant to what we just talked about. What does construction IQ means to you, and how do you spot it beyond the resume? Just like you just said right now, right? Unicorn might be on the resume, but how do you really spot it beyond the resume?
Absolutely. So I know construction IQ is also a piece of software, but I'm assuming you mean through the HR lens. How do we detect construction IQ in somebody? It's the person that I detect from the way they answer the questions can be knee deep in a project plan at 8 p.m., wake up, run up to the site, turn a wrench, turn around, deal with a problem in siting, turn around, drive back home, and get back into the project plans with no complaints. This is just simply their job. And I think that if you are somebody who needs to be stationary all day, or you don't have the capability to jump from one task to something completely different and then jump back, you're just not maybe suited for construction. You've got to be willing to do something, take off that hat, throw on the next hat, and jump into the next task. And you have to, you should enjoy it, right?
Definitely. Enjoying is the most important aspect. If you're not
Yes.
going to enjoy it, you're going to be miserable and you're going to burn yourself out.
Hmm.
And eventually that energy is going to evolve into something bigger and is going to translate into your rest of the team player as well. And that's going to affect their energy and is just going to not good for the project overall. And I think it's very valuable as well, being able to have flexibility and be a team player and be always be optimistic that you are getting something out of it, regardless if it's financial gain, skill gain, or you're just learning a new trade. There's always something to be, you're going to take advantage of the time that you have.
Right.
Excellent point, Kimberly.
Right. You
Well,
too,
yeah.
with thank you.
Yeah, yeah. Where do companies usually miss the mark when hiring for key roles like project managers or field engineers, or sometimes even superintendents?
That I think they focus too much on what we call in recruiting land unconscious bias. And they focus on, hey, I think after work I'd like to grab a beer with that person. They're very likable. Likable doesn't make them a good employee. Yes, you want your employees to be likable, but is that likable person, is that the best quality about them? You want them to be likable and have at least some of the skill set to get the job done. So if you're hiring a superintendent, but they've never seen an HVAC system, but they're really likable, you've got a problem here, right? Like you want to grab a beer, but you're not going to be grabbing a beer till midnight because it's going to take them that much longer to finish their job. So find somebody who knows HVAC and you think the team's going to like and you're going to like. But hiring, it shouldn't be a popularity contest. Hiring should be for skill and culture fit. So I think so many hiring managers are focused too much on, oh, they went to the same college I did, they'll be great. Or they're very outgoing, that makes them great. That's not true. Actually, there's a lot of data science behind the best teams are very diverse. You've got someone introverted, someone extroverted, someone who's got really strong skills in this area, someone whose skills over here complement the other skill set from the other person and they balance out. Put all the pieces of the pie together to make the pie taste good. You don't use one ingredient in a pie, right? You have 8 different ingredients at a minimum. Same thing with people. So I think managers miss out. They're always looking to hire a different version of themselves. No, hire somebody completely different from you and from the person you just hired. Add diversity to your team.
That's an excellent take. I've heard a lot of things, but this is the first one, being biased on likable things
Mhm.
and just hire them because they talk the talk, but can they walk the walk, right?
Right, exactly.
Yeah, so it's really important to have someone in the middle who can handle both
Yes.
at the same time, who can make sure the project is running as well and their communication level is professional
Mhm.
and it's streamlined to make sure everything across the timeline moves efficiently and effectively for both parties. Wow.
Absolutely.
Excellent point. As someone who works closely with executive teams and hiring managers, have you had experience working with the external recruiters? And if you do, what's one thing you really value in them, and what's one thing you would wish that they would stop doing or change it about them?
Absolutely. So, over my career, I've worked with countless third party recruiters, and I think they bring great value to the world of recruiting and corporate and HR. There's always a time where you have to take a hard look at your own internal team and say, okay, logically, we don't have the bandwidth to handle this, but the hire is what's important for the company, not the ego of the internal HR team, because we want to fill all the jobs ourselves, right? But our job is to look out for the company. So if it's what's best is to bring in help, because that's exactly what you guys are, is a tremendous value and help, is to hire somebody that partners with you. And I think the best thing about some third party recruiters is they come in and they want to know you. They talk to the recruiter that would normally be handling this job, and they really try to understand your company culture. So when they pick up that phone and call the candidate, you're just like an extension of our company instead of just acting like a third party recruiter, meaning the candidate might not even know if they weren't paying attention when you announced it at the beginning of the call that you're third party. And what I love and what I've seen that I think is best practice is once you start forming a relationship with a third party recruiter and a few hires in, business is fair, they've made some money, you feel like they're on the right path, split the bill and fly them into one of the offices for a day and let them really experience your culture. And then you want them to be around for a long time. You want to build a relationship. Nobody in corporate America wants to switch out third party recruiters. They want to find somebody and then hold on to them and just keep calling them back when they need somebody or need the extra help.
That is so true. And I hear this all the time, Kimberly. The best recruiters I know that I've talked with, and this is something I apply to myself as well, understand the company and pretend like you are part of that organization when you're speaking to these candidates, because you want to allow to be able to sell that to these candidates as it's your company. And understanding the culture, understanding why the job was open in the first place, what has been working, what has not been working, how I can add value to the team, and what are the different things that can contribute to make a positive results. Or sometimes we have seen it, all of us. There are recruiters who are just pushing out resumes.
Mhm.
They're just bombarding you with resumes, not understanding what the job description requires, not understanding why the position was opened, not understanding what skill set is required from the candidate to be able to have a successful journey in that position, right? So there's a lot of things, if you really understand, and if you really understand your process, your internal process, and make sure that once you're going out to headhunt these candidates, you know exactly what we're looking for. And so you don't end up wasting their time, the candidate's time and the hiring manager's time, because that's what you're hired for to do, right? You want to be
Exactly.
able to partner with an organization where you can add value instead of wasting their time and efforts. Being able to present them with some highly valuable candidates is what builds that relationship for a long time. And understanding their culture. It's very important for external recruiters to understand the organization culture, build that one-on-one relationship, personalized relationship, which helps them grow for a long term.
Exactly.
We touched all the good points, Kimberly. If you had the magic wand, what's one thing? Let's change that comes to your head right away.
Just one thing. That's a hard one. One thing for me is hard. Training. I think training of hiring managers. You know, we always talk about in HR and recruiting and with third party recruiters, we get good at what we do. So we know from experience, look for the combination of skills and likability, look for grit. We know these things, but are we communicating those to the hiring managers? Do our hiring managers go through training? Is the company investing in that? Because a bad hire is what will kill you at the end of the day. So, kill productivity, kill team happiness, kill management happiness. So, why not invest just a little fraction more money up front and don't let that hiring manager hire anybody on their own without being trained by the HR team, without proper mentorship from a more senior leader in the room during the interview process? We spend so much money interviewing, but if you look at the data, nobody sinks a lot of money into the interview section of the employee life cycle. They want to sink all the money into once they're on board. If you've hired a bad candidate, you've already failed. So what's the point in onboarding them? It's like my analogy is if you hire a bad hire, you're having them swim towards a sinking ship, meaning it doesn't matter how good the onboarding is. If they're a bad hire, they're not going to be able to swim to the ship. And the ship is already sinking because you're putting a bad hire on it who doesn't know what they're doing. So why not invest the money up front with training of your hiring managers on how to find the right hire for your company?
Yeah, and I think that's where specialized recruiter who work in the industry.
Exactly.
It could be construction specialized, finance. There's a lot of now niche down recruiters who only just tap into one industry and one niche to be able to understand fully. I came from a cybersecurity background, and I initially was working on multiple different recruitments. I was working for finance, healthcare, and construction. And once I get a job description or job position for one, I had to really go down and understand the whole industry, and then and understand what is one thing that's required for a candidate to be successful in that position. And sometimes when you're juggling multiple different industries and multiple different positions, you don't understand completely what the industry requires. What does that position require? So being able to niche down into a specific industry and just focus within that industry, what helps you grow and what helps you become successful as well, because then you really understand everything that goes on from bidding to kickoff to project timelines and handing it off to the owners, right?
Hmm.
And there's so many different trades that go within. There's mechanicals, there's electrical, there is architect, as you mentioned earlier. So there's a lot of different things that they're key player within construction. So that's why I focused myself to be able to just deliver and specialize, because construction was something I was always fascinated with,
Hmm.
especially real estate, commercial development, in residential development. So I am like, okay, let me just leave all the industries behind, and I'm just going to focus on one thing. And that helped me become someone more understandable to different requirements that I do get across. Now, I have worked with project managers, senior project managers who have handled projects over 125 millions. And so when I speak to them, I understand what it requires, different things that are required for them to be successful in that position, which
Hmm.
helps you be able to go out and target those type of candidates that can come into your organization and be a successful benchmark. Bad hire doesn't just cost you a timeline; it costs you a lot of money.
Hmm.
You might not see it. It might
Right.
not be just coming out of your pocket right there and then. But I have seen it. It have cost companies over $40,000, $50,000, because what has happened? You have had the bad hire. You had paid them for a couple of months. They were not able to get the job done. Now you have to let them go. Once you have to let them go, now you have the position open again for a couple more months, because now you're in the interview process. And once the interview process is done, now the project manager comes in. He has to understand the culture again. He has to get acquainted with the team members again, and the team member have to now adjust with the new project manager. They had to be able to. So it's a lot of morale that gets broken down within the team, a lot of energy, and then a lot of people do get burnt out from just being able to report to one project manager, then after 3 months having to report to another project manager. And it builds the
Right.
momentum, it builds the culture, and it builds it breaks down a lot of things. And I think that's why it's very, very important being able to introduce a training for the hiring manager.
Absolutely. And I think that that is where HR likes partnering long term with a really good third party recruiter. Because if you can't give the information directly, because I understand you're in a precarious position to do that, at least you have the HR team to communicate it with that you work with, right? So that maybe they can communicate it to the hiring manager. But I think so many problems come back to just lack of honest, open communication. And we've lost that somewhere along the way. When I was growing up around my grandfather who owned a successful business, if he had an employee who was failing, he would just directly pull him into his office and say, "You're failing." And I would think to myself, "Oh, that's so mean. How could you do that?" And what he taught me was he did that out of a sign of respect. He wanted the employee to succeed. And if nobody tells you you're failing, how do you get any better? And so to him, he was being respectful by giving the person a chance to get better. And it changed my entire trajectory on probably one of the reasons I like HR now. Be honest, and you can be honest and kind at the same time. And you're helping somebody. It's a beautiful thing. I think I have grown into leadership because I've been so open to constructive criticism. And I listen and I take it to heart and I try and change or improve whatever behavior it is, even if I don't agree with it at the time. I soak in I soak in someone else's opinion. It matters.
Yeah, absolutely. Being transparent is the way to be able to move things forward.
Yes,
As an external recruiter, you have to be honest and transparent to both people. You have one client on the one side, and you have to make sure you have their best interest at heart. And then at the candidate as well, you want to make sure you have their best interest at heart, because you don't want somebody who you feel is a person that's not serious or that's not going to get the job done to be able to keep selling him. And you might not see it, but sometimes recruiters have very honest conversations, and candidates do have very honest conversations with recruiters as compared to the HR managers or the hiring managers.
exactly. Yes, of course.
So they're
Yeah.
more open to it. So I think recruiters get themselves in a position where they can really make the decision and understand, from understanding the company's culture and understanding the candidate mindset, what he's feeling. Is he really serious about the organization? Is he doing his homework? How often is he providing his communication? Like, is he ghosting you after like 2 3 days? That shows if he's serious or not. And that's
Mhm.
where you pick up these small things that become eventually a red flag. And for me, whenever I run into a situation, I be very open with the candidate. Let me know if this is not something you'd be interested in, because I'm not trying to let you leave your current position. Come here, hate yourself, hate me
Mhm.
for pulling you, and then at the end of the day, I end the bridge with the client as well, because
Yes.
the client is like, why did you bring me somebody that you might have seen any red flags? So I try to have a very honest and transparent communication with my candidates to make sure, hey, if there is anything that I can help you avoid, I'll be upfront with it, because at the end of the day, time is essence, and we want to make sure we get things done and keep things moving forward quickly.
Absolutely. And I love that viewpoint. And I really like when you said candidates might say something to you that they're not going to tell the internal HR person or hiring team, like, hey, don't tell the client, but I won't ever work Saturday mornings. My kid's on a soccer team and I won't miss their game. I'm the coach and it's important to me. And they might be afraid to tell the hiring manager that. But then if they get hired, and we know they need to be at work on Saturday mornings if the project is blowing up or something's going wrong. Now everybody's unhappy. And if that person had shared that one sentence, everything would have been avoided or fixed. So, yeah, I love that you pointed that out. And it absolutely holds a lot of value.
That's why it's important for the external recruiters to understand just beyond the job description,
Hmm.
understand what's important for you, what are you looking for, what are the things that you value,
Yes,
and what does your culture look like, in order for them to be successful in their job and find you the right candidate.
absolutely.
Excellent. I want to go into segment three, to talk more about some of the hiring process and what's really holding the industry back now. What's has been an outdated hiring practice that still linger in construction, and what would you do to replace it?
Oh, wow. Oh, that's going to be a hard one. Since we're on the topic of honesty and transparency, I think what I've seen in construction specifically over the past 20 years is now more than ever, minority employees are majoring in construction in college, and that includes women. And if you look at the construction industry 50 years ago, it was white and it was male. And now it's everybody, which is beautiful. And so stop dismissing resumes that don't fit your stereotype of what construction industry looks like. You're missing out. Imagine if you went in to design a bathroom and you had, remember going back to that pie, right? And you should have 8 different pieces of pie. Imagine you're building out and designing a new bathroom. Do you think the bathroom design would be the best with 8 pieces of pie that are men or diversity? Then the woman might say, hey, women are also sharing this bathroom. Women are more likely to pick out the house if you're going back to residential construction, right? And a lot of women are CEOs now. They might be picking out your retail space also, or their designer might be picking it out, or whoever's in charge is very likely now to also be a woman or a minority. They might see things through a completely different lens. I put the mirror over here. I put this color in. I would put that toilet in. And it's all these things that seem silly, but that's what's going to help you sell or move your space. So going back to, don't hire based on what you think you know, meaning what you think. I use the word think you know. Don't just base it on your past. Look forward and hire for the future, which is diversity. This country is a melting pot, so cater to it. Why wouldn't you? You're only losing out on the bottom line.
Yeah, excellent, excellent. That's so true. Now, diversity has been the key, and construction has evolved over the years from where we were and where we are right now. There's so much women empowerment, and there a lot of women are now leading in an executive leadership role. I
Mhm.
have a lot of connections in construction, specifically that they're CEO now,
Mhm.
and they're
Yep.
younger, the young women, 35, 40, and
Yep.
leading a company of construction.
Yep.
It could be residential or it could be commercial. So diversity has been a huge point for our construction industry. And I feel like that's when we have to be able to have an open mindset and just look beyond what we have been taught and being able to grow and understand how the industry is shaping for future, which is what you mentioned. And I think it's an excellent point. The diversity is key. I want to ask about, I know we talked about a cost of bad hire already. Do companies really understand the ROI hiring right for the first time?
So I would say no. And I think that that's where having a good HR leader in place makes a difference. I spent days, if not probably weeks, putting together a presentation for my company specifically at the time, what it was costing us to turn over a facility maintenance person. And our turnover was insanely high. And so I turned it all into math and literally exact math down to a penny of this is what it cost us to have a bad hire. If we have turnover in 30 days, turnover in 60 or 90 days, turnover in 6 months, and here's the differential in prices. And it, like you said, because they don't feel it at the moment, the cost, it doesn't, it seems to suffer soaking in. They're so focused on just wrapping up that project, which I understand and I respect that. But you've got to find some balance because otherwise every project is just a recycle of the first one. Like any good project manager, the HR person looks at a project, but their responsibility is the headcount, right? And they look at it and they say, we have 40% turnover. We could save $400,000 on the next project if we actually keep all these employees. Literally, just keep them. Not so if they come to you and ask for $2 more an hour, don't come to me, give it to them. Because if you don't give it to them, that you'll never even make up that $2 an hour loss. It's like, like people who put in solar panels, for example. Are they doing it for economic reasons? No, they'll tell you they're not because it costs so much money up front to get solar panels. They'll never make up the money in their energy bill over their lifetime. They're doing it because it's better for the environment and they have a belief in that. But when it comes down to employees and turnover, it's the adverse of that. You literally are saving money if you give them a raise than if they turn over. You're literally saving money to just give them a few extra bucks an hour. Why is it even a question? I like to see small, quick promotions. Hey, you've been here 3 months, you're doing a great job. Here's another dollar. You've been here 6 months, you're doing a great job. Here's another dollar. You've been here 12 months, you're doing a great job. Here's a $5,000 spot bonus. Look at the math. It always saves you money to keep them than turn them over. They're more efficient, they're better at their job. So every project they're on is faster, smoother, and more ROI on your bottom line. To me, it's just math.
and they feel valuable as well. They
Yes.
feel like they're part of the team. They
Yes.
feel like they're being heard. They are being appreciated for their hard work, and they're going to come with every day with more grit
Yes,
and get the job
exactly.
done. And they
Exactly.
feel like they're actually part of the company where companies are able to see through them. And I think being in a leadership position is very important for us to appreciate the hard work, because
Mhm.
that what keeps them motivated, and that what keeps the projects moving as well, because at the end of the day, these are the people that get the job done. So
Right.
it's always best to invest in these type of things. And I've had people or leaders who understand employees grit, understand their hard work and appreciated their hard work, and always value them by giving them the holidays,
Yes.
PTOs, or giving them the bonuses that or could be 10,000, 15,000, 20,000, depending on the position they're in. They feel like, oh, wow, this company really values me. They won't even look out for any other position. They won't even
Right.
talk to anybody.
Exactly.
They won't even
They
talk to
ignore the
anybody.
LinkedIn. They ignore the LinkedIn request. And if you have an employee like that, hold on to them like a pot of gold, because you worked hard to get them there and they worked hard to get there with you. But you've got to maintain that relationship now. And it'll be easier to maintain as the years go on, because as you said, Wiki, now they also feel loyalty. And loyalty will win every time, every single time. And happy employees equal, literally, an equal sign. Happy employees equal happy clients. Happy employees do a good job. Happy employees don't cut corners on a project. They don't bail half day and cover up their mess. They fix what they need to fix because they want their boss to be happy, and now the client's happy. And that's loyalty in a circle. It's a beautiful thing.
Yeah, it's a beautiful thing. And they want to do it right for the first time. They don't want to
Yes,
rush through it.
they take pride.
They take pride in their work, and they want to be able to make sure that it's there, and they want to build a legacy with you.
Yes.
And I think it's an excellent point. And I've seen a lot of organizations who understand this point and understand this culture have, if you go onto their LinkedIn page, they have had employees with them for 15 years, 16
Yes.
years. It's just not one employee. You see all of them.
Yes.
Multiple 80% of the employees working for an organization that are there for 16, 17 years. And then you start to seeing that trend. And now as a recruiter, you're asking yourself a question: do I really need to reach out to these individuals? Because I know the answer is going to be, I'm happy with where I
Yes.
am,
Yep.
and there's nothing that can move me.
Yes.
So having built that, culture within your organization would help you succeed for long term and for generations to come.
Exactly.
Awesome. I want to dive into segment 4, which is employee relations and mediation and culture. So let's pivot into a little bit more employee relations, something you have described as both as a science and an art that really
Mhm.
resonated with me. So I wanted to see if you could break that down. How has being a certified mediator changed the way you led and solved problems?
Absolutely. So when you start an HR job, usually as an HR assistant or a generalist, they won't usually let you in a room alone with employees to solve a complex problem, because what HR people know, and it's only people who've been in the industry for a long time or in this role, is that every situation's unique, every situation's different. And the problems with employee relations is, if you were to think of it like a spectrum, let's say left to right, it's the gray in the middle is always where employee relations issues live, meaning it's a mystery. You don't know what the intentions were, you don't know what the emotions were, you don't know the why. Even when people are talking, you can be saying the exact same thing, but they're saying it differently. And the easiest example is, if you take the number 6, right, and I put it laying down flat on a beach, and you're standing on the bottom of the 6, you see a 6. If I put a person standing on the other side and don't tell them the number, what do they see? They see a 9. It's called dialectical, meaning you're both right at the same time, or you could both be wrong, right? And so what you learn in mediation is, it's not about who's right or wrong. It's about moving forward, find the resolution, try to get both people to see the other side. And then ideally, you want to encourage them and nudge them towards a solution they come up with. And if you can't get them there, as a mediator, technically, you're not really supposed to give them the solution. As an HR person, you can. And what you do is use your expertise and your knowledge. Hey, you can both be happy, but you both maybe need to make a little concession here. Because as unicorns don't exist in the field when you're hiring, unicorns don't exist either at work, meaning we're human. We all have faults. We all have complexities. We all have hot buttons. Human emotion doesn't stop at the door when somebody gets to work. And do people mask it and control it better? Yes, and they should. But human emotions don't stop. So mediation teaches you how to help one side see the other and vice versa. And a lot of times when you help people communicate, the problem solves itself because 99% of the time it's miscommunication to begin with.
Yeah, that's absolutely true. Communication, we keep going back to that.
Mhm.
It's always the communication, the transparency, and understanding a different perspective from each other lens to be able to find a middle ground. You gave a perfect example for number 6 and number 9, and I've seen that video as well in social media, exactly what you were talking about. And they did an experiment. The other person thought he was right, the first person thought he was right. And it's always being able to put yourself in both of their shoes to understand what they're looking at
Mhm.
and how you can help them find middle ground to be able to move forward. And that is exactly what's more required. Having said that, what advice would you give to your HR team trying to balance between these and the real human connection?
Absolutely. So what I try to teach HR people who are newer to the field or just anybody who's willing to listen to me and of course I'm always open to learning, always be open to teaching and learning at the same time, always, is when you want both employees to stay, assuming that's your goal, most of the time it is, when they leave that room, they have to continue their relationship because working together is a relationship. You have a relationship with your spouse, you have a relationship with your children, you also have a relationship with people you work with. And people never see it that way. They think, oh, it's a coworker. That's a relationship. And you want to have great communication in that relationship. That's a win win for everybody. So when you encourage them to find the solution, or you have to help them find the solution, make sure that they keep building that bridge, meaning it's not done when they walk out of the room, even if they're shaking hands. Touch base with them a week later, a month later. How are you guys doing? How's the communication? Are you still on the same page? Do you want to have a get together again and just have a 5 minute call and align again? It's, we're human. Our flaws are our flaws. We're not going to, snap our fingers and fix them, and part of that is miscommunication. So it's a continuing process. You can't just stop in the middle.
Yeah, being able to compromise and understand the other person's perspective.
Mm,
All 5 fingers are never going to be the same as
yes.
well. So every individual has their own perspective, and being able to understand them as well is what keeps the relationship going. And co-working relationship is so important nowadays because
Hmm.
half of the day you're spending at work and you're spending 8 to 9 hours, sometimes 10 to 12 hours a day, right? So if you're not having a good relationship at work, the day is going to feel like you've been there for 24 hours
Hmm.
or more, right?
Right.
But once you're having a good relationship with your employees and coworkers and really enjoying the time you're being there, time flies.
Absolutely. Have you ever seen, like, have you ever had a game night and there's a married couple there and they answer questions? Like, if you're playing any game where one person has to guess, the spouse of the other person will guess before they even finish the sentence because they understand how the person thinks, right? Best friends, if you see best friends playing a game night, same thing. They can answer before their friend even finishes the sentence. It's no different than coworkers. When coworkers work together for a long time, they learn how one another thinks. So that project moves that much faster. they can almost answer typically on behalf of their coworker. If their coworker's on a flight on their way to the project, they can say, oh, I'll call them, but I'm telling you, they're going to say X. They're going to say Y. And so it's a great way. It's when you have that stability on your team, everybody involved is happier, not just the team, but the manager, the senior leadership, both directions, because the project's that much more likely to succeed.
Correct. And they take ownership of each and individual things as well,
Yes.
right? When they're working together, and they see something that was supposed to be done by John, Jake would come in and take the ownership of those things because he know, hey, I'm here, let me just get it done because it needs to get done.
Mhm.
Taking each other ownership, I think helps you move projects more quickly and more efficiently as well. So
Yeah.
yeah, that's an excellent point. So Kimberly, we'll dive into our last segment, which is retention and leadership in fast-paced environment. Retention, we have always seen as a big challenge, especially in project-based work where teams are shifting constantly. How can leader build loyalty in a world that moves fast? I think we already touched a little bit
Yeah.
about
A
it.
little bit.
I think it's being able to appreciate, being able to understand what the other people is being valued at.
Mhm.
Loyalty, transparency, and communication is what builds that loyalty and appreciating the other workers' hard work and what they're going through, right?
Exactly. Absolutely. I think it comes down to communication, autonomy, depending on the role, of course, and rewards, right? And find out through relationship building what your employees want. A younger employee, for example, may just care about the money, and that's okay. That's not a negative. That's their phase of life. Where an older employee might say, I'd much rather have an extra week off. Just give me 5 extra days off and just look the other way that I didn't take 5 extra days vacation because I want to be with my kids more. Where they're compensated well enough and the money's always great. Nobody ever dislikes money, but maybe they just rather have the time off. So create more people centric, individual centric, I should say, retention plans. Don't just create a one all retention plan. I heard a great idea just the other day, and it was a manager was talking to his employee, and I know the employee, and he said to her, "Are you having a bad day?" And she said, "Yes, X, Y, and Z is going on. I'm very stressed out, all stuff at work." He said, "Would you feel better if I donated $500 to a charity? You pick the charity." And so she picked the Humane Society, and he sent her an email confirming, I can't talk, confirming, I need more caffeine this morning, confirming that he donated $500 from her name. This all took place in about 10 minutes, meaning the conversation, they hung up, he made the donation, he sent her the email. She says she was smiling for 2 weeks. He didn't even give her any money. He donated it. But he asked her to wear, and it was all about her. And he did it instantaneously. And I thought, oh, that man's a genius. How smart is that? Because it's what she wanted, you know?
And she was being valued and she was
Yes.
being heard.
Yeah.
And I think the
Yeah.
great leaders are always in the room, ready to hear instead of, talking. Once
Yes.
you hear, you understand where the great opportunity lies, and you can understand what people are feeling, how your team is feeling, and being able to take that information to grow with it. And I think
Right.
that's what makes great leadership successful in that role.
Absolutely. There's a quote, and I'm remiss to say I can't remember who said it, but the quote was, if you're in a senior leadership role and you don't hear any complaining, you're not listening. Complaining is inevitable. So it's just more about how are you listening and how are you handling it?
Be always ready to, hear.
Yes.
Then talk. If you were in a position where a new HR director asks you for advice on a day one, what's the first thing that you would tell them to focus on?
I would say focus on getting to know the employees. Walk around, extend your hand to every single person you encounter today. I don't care if you do it for 8 hours. If we're 1,000 person company and you have to go on 4 floors, I want to see you go on 4 floors. Walk around, tell them you're here. You're here to support them. And if your business cards are ready, give them your business card or have your phone number written down or your email and introduce yourself to everybody. And don't start with the leadership. Just start with whoever's in front of you. Because as HR, your role is to be a strategic partner. You can't be a partner with somebody who doesn't know you and isn't comfortable coming to you. And I always tell my HR teams the onus is on us to start the relationship.
Yeah, be more people centric
Yes,
and open to relationships and understand. Make sure the employees know that you exist
yes,
behind, not just sitting behind the desk, and not
yeah,
someone who's not approachable, but someone who's highly approachable and understand the company's culture and values the relationship.
right.
Excellent, excellent.
Right.
So we're at the very end is to just a closing the rapid fire around questions. I have a few questions. It has to be very quick fire questions. Just say whatever comes to your mind first. One leadership trait that's underrated.
I think we mentioned it before, grit.
Great, awesome. A book or resource every HR construction leader should read.
Oh, it's called No Hard Feelings. Hold on, I have it right here. No Hard Feelings, Emotions at Work by Liz Fosslien and Molly West Duffy. It's a phenomenal book.
A favorite part about working in construction so far?
Oh, I so admire what they can do because if I lift a hammer, I'm going to break a finger. So I'm always fascinated with people and how they can just see how the project needs to turn out and then take their hands and make it happen. It's not a strength of mine. So I'm very impressed by anybody who does it.
Awesome. Last question. If you could fix one hiring issue overnight, what would it be?
Oh my goodness. Invest in the hiring process. Invest up front so you avoid bad hires.
Awesome. Awesome. Thank you so much, Kimberly. This has been one of the most insightful conversation I've had. You bring strategy, empathy, and real world experience together in a way that's incredibly rare and deeply needed in the industry. For everyone listening, if you're trying to grow a stronger team, reduce turnover, or finally bridging the gap between the office and the field, this episode is definitely your playbook. Kimberly, thank you again for joining us at the Elite Build podcast. And I appreciate your time. And I look forward to speaking with you soon.
Thank you, Wiki. I appreciate your time also.